Welcome to the channel, guys. We are back again, and today we're going to be talking about Galloway by Parfums de Marley. So stay tuned for that. And if you like the content, guys, hit that like and subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. Galloway was released quite some time ago by Parfums de Marley, and it's actually one of the fragrances that is lesser talked about from the house. There are actually quite a few. The ones that usually get attention are things like Wajan, Carlisle, Herod, Percival, and Leighton, of course. And those are good fragrances, but of course, this is one that I really enjoy, and I wanted to revisit it. This was actually the very first fragrance I ever reviewed on the channel. Now that I have a bottle, I wanted to go through a nice re-review of this 2 years later to give you more thoughts on this fragrance. So before I get into the fragrance, guys, I'm going to talk about the presentation a little bit. So this is a tester, so I don't actually have a box for this one. It did just come in a plain box, plain white box. And it does have a box similar to Sedley, although it is white with white stripes. This is the basic box though, and it just opens from the top. There's a little bit of some literature there, and you open from the top and the bottle pulls out like so. The main reason I actually keep boxes is mostly for storage purposes and mostly for bottles that are clear or are somewhat transparent. The main reason is that light does damage fragrances, and I have enough that it's going to take me a long time to use all of them. So I do want them to last as long as possible, and I just find it's easy to keep them out of sunlight with a box to put them in. In the case that I have something where the box is, or the bottle itself is not clear, I don't worry about it too much. But anyways, the other style of box actually, and I do want to mention this is because I really do actually like the presentation. I really wish all of the Parfums de Marley presentations were like this. So Wajan, Carlisle, Habdani, they do come with a box like this. It's a little bit different, and basically this slides over, pulls up, and the big difference is that there's actually a stand. I really like that stand. I think it's nice for presentation purposes, and it would be great if they were all like that, but unfortunately they're not. The bottle itself is one of the things I do like about Galloway. So it is a nice pearly white bottle. Now, as I mentioned, this is a tester, so Parfums de Marley testers, I think they still do this, but I know that they definitely do in the past. They have the notes on the back. I think that's kind of nice. It's a nice little touch. It's nice to have. As far as the bottle goes, you can see what is in the fragrance. And typical Parfums de Marley style, these things are basically like deadly weapons. This is probably heavier than the bottle itself, but gorgeous bottle. Really do like the presentation. The white is also nice because you get a very nice clear picture of the horses of the Parfums de Marley logo. But anyways, that is the presentation for Galloway. Now, this is a fresh fragrance from Parfums de Marley, and truth be told, they're not as well known for their fresh fragrances, although the new Sedley is a fresh fragrance, and of course also Percival is a fresh fragrance, and I hear that Percival is one of their best sellers, so they do seem to be able to do something well with fresh fragrances, and I like this one because it's quite a bit different from other fragrances that I've smelt, other fresh fragrances, although this one often gets compared to Lalique White. So I haven't personally tried that fragrance. It is one that I'm interested in seeing how close to this it is, what the difference is in quality and actual smell, although of course there's some discussion on how similar they actually are. Now, I find this one to be a really easy to wear summer fragrance, and it is very long lasting, which is really something special for a fresh fragrance. And what I get from this one is something a little bit different because it's not really aquatic, although it does have a watery kind of component, and it's not a heavy citrus fragrance. There is citrus in this in the opening, so it does have those citric elements. But what I find is I do get a little bit of a somewhat jelly-like bergamot type accord in the opening. But the biggest thing that I get is something about the citrus and the musks blend together really nicely to give me something which smells a lot like clean water, which I really like that about it. So it has this definite clean, watery vibe. And actually, especially typically in the opening, I will say it sometimes varies a little bit, but typically in the opening, I don't get a lot of pepper. This is a fragrance with pepper in it, but that's something that comes out a lot more in the mid and the dry down. The opening is a more musky, clean water kind of accord. Now, from what I've heard from other people who, smelt this on me, some people typically describe this as being a somewhat soapy fragrance. I don't get a very big soapy vibe from this one, but it does have iris in it, so it wouldn't be too surprising to me if it didn't have some soapiness, especially to some people's noses. Now, I don't pick up a lot of the iris, which for me anyways is a good thing. I'm not a huge iris fan. Even things like Prada L'Homme, which is like one of the kings of iris, not really something that did it for me. And most of the iterations of Dior Homme I didn't really like. So I am happy that I get more of this sort of musky kind of a vibe. And what happens during the mid and into the dry down is that this one becomes a musky, peppery scent. So I do get quite a bit of pepper, and again, this does vary a little bit to my skin, and this is the one place I'll say I sometimes have a complaint, is that occasionally when I put this on, the pepper is way too in your face for the rest of the musk. I really like when on my skin the musk and the pepper blend really quite well. And I think when it's really strong is kind of when it's a little bit off-putting to me, because it is unusual. And in that sense, I actually remember hearing Demi talk about this fragrance, said she didn't like it that much because it does smell kind of weird. And I will admit that it is a different fragrance, which is one of the things I appreciate about it. But certainly when it is a heavy peppery musk, I do find it a little bit strange. I like it better when the pepper is a little bit more toned down. That being said, the majority of the times I wear this fragrance, it is a nice blend of pepper and a clean musk. So this is a really easy to wear summer fragrance, and it's a little bit different because it's not really aquatic, and the elements of it that are watery to me smell different than the typical aquatic fragrance. So it's not kind of like an ocean breeze. It's not like, a citric aquatic. It's not like an Aqua de Joe or something like that. It's more like clean water from a river. And I really, really dig that aspect of it about this fragrance. And when it does dry down, it's more of a clean, musky, peppery fragrance. And that is really good for the summer, in my opinion. It smells clean, especially if it's hot outside. You start sweating or whatever, you still smell clean. But this is also one that does project and perform really quite well. So I'll consistently get at least 8 hours with this one. I haven't worn this one in the absolute crazy heat, but I've worn this one a couple times around 25 or so degrees Celsius, which is pretty hot. I never really got the hold of Fahrenheit, so you'll have to give me a break there, but I know that's pretty warm. So 25 degrees Celsius, worn this one, and it still performs, still lasts on my skin, doesn't really just evaporate right away. So it does have that longevity, and I do typically get at least 8 hours with this one. It also projects pretty strong for the first, I want to say 2 or 3 hours, and it does leave a nice sillage for pretty much the rest of this fragrance. I get, a nice scent cloud, nice sillage. I'll move around, I'll get a bit of a whiff of it. Just when I think it's gone, I move around, I get another whiff of it. So I do like this one, and it is one that you can pick up a little bit cheaper as far as Parfums de Marley goes. I got this on Fragrance Net for probably the equivalent of around $120 US, and of course I do like the fact that, as I mentioned before, it's a tester, so you get the notes on the back. That's something that Parfums de Marley does with their testers, or at least I think they still do it, and it can be gotten quite inexpensively. So that's nice, and I know a lot of people in the gray market sell it around that price point. So this is a nice one to get with respect to being a somewhat different, fresh fragrance. Of course, I think you should try before you buy, as with everything. Like I said, it's a little bit different, so it's not going to be something that suits everybody's taste, but it is a nice, clean, gentlemanly fragrance. And that's one of the things that I like about it. So it does have a lot of versatility. It's probably not the most versatile of the Parfums de Marley. but it is very versatile because it is classy, but it's easy, it's light, so you can easily wear this with a t-shirt. But I've put this in video lists before for office fragrance because, again, it's one of these ones that's I think very inoffensive yet very classy smelling, and so this is something I can see wearing with a suit to work, or something that you can just wear out with a t-shirt when it's hot out. So ultimately, I'm glad to finally have had this one in my collection. I've had a 10 ml decant of this one for 2 years, so it does last a long time. You don't need to go too heavy on this one. I probably go 3-4 sprays with this one, depending on the situation. But it is one that lasts a long time, and it is quite potent. A little bit different in the terms of summer fragrances, but I think it's one that isn't talked about a lot, and I do like hunting down fragrances from houses that aren't talked about as much as some of the other ones, or not given as much love, even though they're still very good fragrances. So if you do like some of the fresher fragrances from Parfums de Marley, this is one you shouldn't pass by, because I think it is a very nice find. Anyways, guys, that's it for this one. Leave a comment down below. What is your favorite fresh fragrance from Parfums de Marley? And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.